All right, this next page, Skill Builder 4, is really just a mixture of the things that you've learned from the previous 3 skill builders. All right, so number 1 has x to the negative 1/2. So let's deal with the negative exponent first. This is going to be 1 over x to the 1/2. And then remember that when you have x to the 1/2, that really is saying please take the square root of x. Number 2, 27 to the negative 2/3. Again, I'm going to deal with the negative part of the exponent first. That would be 1 over 27 to the 2/3. And then if you go back, remember that this bottom part tells you the root that you're taking. So you're going to take the cube root or the third root. And then this tells you what you're going to raise it to when you're done. So 1 over the cube root of 27 squared. Well, the cube root of 27, meaning what thing multiplied by itself 3 times, gives you 27. So the cube root of 27 is 3, because 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. All right, so the cube root of 27 is 3, and 3 squared is 9. So your final answer is 1 over 9. Number 3, this says 6 to the 0 power, which is 1, plus 1/4 to the negative 2 power. Okay, so I'm going to work over here. 1/4 to the negative 2 power. I'm going to take care of that negative part of the exponent, meaning I'm going to flip this. 4 over 1, which really is just 4. Okay, so this is now 4 to the second power. And 4 to the second power means 4 times 4, which is 16. So all of this, when it's all said and done, is 16. So 1 plus 16 is 17. Okay. 8 to the 5/3. Well, that looks really ugly and intimidating until you kind of just break it down. Remember, this is the root you're taking. This is what you're going to raise it to when you're finished. So the cube root of 8 raised to the 5th power. What times what times what gives us 8? Well, 2 times 2 times 2 gives us 8. So the cube root of 8 is 2. 2 to the 5th, that's 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. 2 to the 5th is 32. There's your answer. Okay, so number 5 says 16 to the negative 4th power. All right, get rid of the negative part of the exponent, so that's going to be 1 over 16 to the 1/4 power. 16 to the 1/4 power is basically saying please take the 4th root of 16. So 1 over the 4th root of 16, meaning what number multiplied by itself 4 times is going to give you 16? Well, that's 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 that gives you 16. So the 4th root of 16 is 2. And 1 over 2 is 1/2. Okay, 8 to the 1/3 is asking you to take the cube root of 8 and subtract the square root of 4. Remember, I don't have to put an index number out here if it's just a square root. The cube root of 8, 2 times 2 times 2 gives you 8. So the cube root of 8 is 2. The square root of 4, what number multiplied by itself gives you 4? 2 times 2 is 4. And we're going to assume again, I mean technically the square root of 4 could be negative 2 as well, but we're just going to work with positive roots right now. So 2, and then the square root of 2 is, or the square root of 4 is also 2. So 2 minus 2, and that's going to give you an answer of 0. Okay, Next one, 7. X to the negative third is the same as saying 1 over x to the third. And you're multiplying that by 3x raised to the second power. That 2 applies to the 3 and to the x because it's outside the parentheses, and the 3 and the x are inside the parentheses. So this is 3 times 3, because 3 squared, and x times x, which is x squared. And there's no fraction, so really I'm just going to put this over 1 just as a placeholder. So really, you've got all of this on the top. 1 times 3 is 9. So you've got 9x squared on top. And you have x to the third on bottom. Now, I need a little more room. 9x squared is same as saying 9 times x, and that's over x times x times x. That set of x's cancels. That set of x's cancels. And what you wind up being left with is 9 over x. That's your final answer. Okay. All right, let me move this up for just a second. Okay. You're multiplying these two things together. Negative 2 to the 0 power. Remember, the negative is in there with the 2. So it's negative 2 to the 0 power, which is 1. And then 2m to the negative 2 power. So that's going to be the same as 1 over 2m to the second. Okay. This is all inside the parentheses, so the exponent of 2 applies to both the 2 and the m, so this becomes 1 over 2 times 2 is 4, m times m is m squared. So all of this multiplied by 1, which is, honestly, it's just this. It's 1 over 4m squared. All right, then we have 10 to the negative 2 power. That's the same as saying 1, oops, my paper's moving, 1 over 10 squared, which is 1 over 10 times 10, which is 100. All right, the next one we have 16 to the 3/2 power. Remember that the bottom number tells you the root you're taking. The top number of the fractional exponent tells you what you're going to raise it to once you've taken that. So this is the square root of 16 raised to the 3rd power. All right, what number multiplied by itself gives you 16? Well, 4 times 4 gives you 16. So the square root of 16 is 4. And so you wind up saying, what is 4 to the 3rd power? In other words, what is 4 times 4 times 4? And that is 64. Okay, next one. X to the negative 4th is the same as 1 over x to the 4th. This, I'm going to just make it look as like a fraction, just to keep everything sort of looking the same. X squared is just x squared over 1. It's the same thing. Okay. And then 1 over x to the negative 3rd, because that exponent is negative, I'm going to flip the fraction and then make it a positive exponent. So that's going to be x over 1 to the 3rd. Okay, which is going to wind up being x to the 3rd over 1 to the 3rd, but 1 to the 3rd is just 1. Okay, so now I just take all of my numerators and multiply. 1 times x squared times x to the 3rd. That is x to the 5th over x to the 4th times 1, that's just x to the 4th. All right, long story short, I've got x times x times x times x times x up at the top, x times x times x times x at the bottom. Write it out. 2, 3, 4, 5. X to the 5th on top. X to the 4th on bottom. Cancel, 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 cancel. And your final answer is just x.